There is a godlike being somewhere out there in the universe creating brand new planets with astonishing results. Her most recent creation was the planet known as Fenrir, a planet in which she loved dearly as one of her greatest triumphs. On Fenrir, she created four gods and goddesses to kickstart the planet. For the most part, she remained uninvolved in the development of the planet itself, but fully invested in the stories of the people living there. While she kept a close eye on Fenrir, she wondered if she could replicate the success of it, and thus her imagination once again took over. She molded a new planet, picked a new galaxy to house it, and once again put four gods and goddesses in charge of breathing new life into it. Her only contribution was the name, which she whispered to the first goddess she created. The goddess was Nemea, the lion goddess, and the planet's name was Ruma. Nemea would go on to create many things, but her greatest creation would be this planet's version of humans, eventually known as the Rumans. Along with Nemea came the imp god Tero, and his much larger brother god, the crocodile god Sero. Though they also created many things, they were primarily the gods of night and day, respectively. Tero created the outer continents of Ruma, and Sero, along with Nemea's help, created the main continent of Skyla. Another goddess was born on the same day as these three, Echidna, the snake goddess. While Nemea, Tero, and Sero shaped the land, it was Echidna who truly gave it personality. To the Rumans on the southern half of Skyla, Echidna gifted them magic. Some children were born with magical-based superpowers, and yet those less fortunate could still go on to learn to cast spells. For those living in the northern half of Skyla, Echidna gifted them technology and advanced metal. She left it up to the Rumans living in both parts to decide if they would keep their uniqueness she bestowed upon them or learn to share their resources. Needless to say, this led to a lot of mixed feelings and conflict that the gods and goddesses all agreed to stay out of, at least at first. After many wars and failed treaties attempted by failed rulers, Sero and Nemea decided to intervene. They would each appoint their own ruler, and those rulers would have direct contact with their deity of choice. Sero took responsibility for South Skyla and appointed a Rumen named Dracos as their ruler. Together they would bring South Skyla to new heights, both from a financial standpoint as well as a magical one. Through proper planning and utilizing those with unique abilities and skills, they created the first Skylian Empire, and Dracos became their first emperor. North Skyla required a more delicate touch, as the Rumans living there felt cheated by the gods and goddesses' choices. South Skyla's Rumans were given unique powers at birth, magic to fill their shortcomings, and a beautiful natural land to call their own. North Skyla's Rumans had to work in order to make their gifts worth it. Nemea's sudden involvement helped smooth things over, but not all of the northern Rumans were convinced. No matter how much she aided them and helped them prosper, she was still akin to the gods and goddesses they felt had betrayed them. In order to win back their trust, Nemea needed to give them something that South Skyla and their new empire could never have. A leader that could evolve with them, much like their cities and towns were evolving with technology. In a ceremony unlike any seen on Ruma before, a Rumen named Sybil was bestowed the greatest gift of all. Nemea, with Tero, Sero, and Echidna's approval and supervision, anointed Sybil a taste of their godhood. They gave her eternal life and a body capable of adapting and changing to the technology of North Skyla. It was as if Sybil had become one with the northern half of Skyla. The gods and goddesses thought a leader of this caliber would be what North Skyla needed to get back on the right track, but their efforts went too far, and they underestimated just how much power they had given Sybil. At first, everything worked as Nemea predicted it would, but as technological advancements continued, Sybil became smarter, stronger, and the gap between her anointed godhood and the gods and goddesses' actual divinity began to close. Feeding off the energy of the Rumans of North Skyla, and their continued distrust of the gods and goddesses, Sybil made an announcement that would change the landscape of Skyla forever. She summoned the Rumans of North Skyla to a meeting and insisted the gods and goddesses attend. At this meeting, Sybil announced that despite the fact that she was thankful for Nemea's contributions to their uprising, her own distrust of the gods and goddesses had grown as much as her people's. Therefore, from that day forward, she would banish the deities from North Skyla. Ironically enough, in order to make something powerful enough to keep the gods and goddesses out of North Skyla, Sybil had to make a deal with Tero, the imp god. Tero did not get along with his fellow gods and goddesses, and while Echidna began to shift her focus to the outer continents, Sero helped South Skyla and Nemia helped North Skyla. Tero was doing his own thing. This mainly involved creating his own people and an entire civilization beneath the ocean surrounding Skyla. These sea Rumans would be known as the Mori. Gifted neither magic nor technology, the Mori found ways to live on their own and chose to live exclusively underwater. As long as they worshipped Tero, the imp god would bestow upon them many gifts, most of which were enchanted items to help the development of their civilization. Using her omnipotence and ever-growing knowledge of all things, Sybil became aware of Tero's enchanted items, as well as being aware of his underwater civilization. One day, Sybil arrived in the Mori's land beneath the sea. Her immortality and advanced body allowed her to be able to breathe underwater. This caused much panic for the Mori people and even caught Tero by surprise. In order to keep the Mori people secluded from Skyla affairs, Sybil made a deal with Tero and the leaders of the Mori. If Tero agreed to enchant a gate powerful enough to keep even the gods and goddesses out of North Skyla and use it to separate North Skyla from South Skyla, then Sybil would never involve Mori in anything happening on the main continent. However, if the imp god refused, then North Skyla would develop the technology to allow their army to invade the sea lands and remove the Mori from Ruma. A dangerous ultimatum that even Tero believed Sybil could pull off made the decision easy for the imp god. He had grown fond of the Mori and would do anything to keep them safe. Besides, seclusion from Skyla was what the Mori wanted anyway, so making a gate strong enough to potentially keep the peace both for the Sea Rumans and all of Skyla wasn't a terrible trade-off. The threat wasn't welcomed, of course, but the end goal seemed beneficial to all involved. Therefore, Tero made the gate for Sybil. After construction of the gate, which Sybil named the Makara Gate, Sybil made another announcement. Though Skyla would obviously remain their home as the main continent of Ruma, North Skyla would now be known as Mecca. Once Dracos heard of everything happening in the north, he welcomed the banished gods and goddesses with open arms. Their involvement in the south could only further their development, and he was looking forward to their partnership. However, the gods and goddesses decided it was once again best to stay out of the conflicts of the Rumans. Nemia left Skyla behind to travel to the outer continents to help Echidna mold the outer parts of the world. Tero remained in the sea with the Mori. This left Sero unsure of what his place was in all of this, so he continued to advise Dracos as much as he could and help him navigate this new world that Sybil had impacted. His first suggestion to the young emperor was to change their name as well. If the north was now Mecca, then the South Skylian Empire must have its own identity. Dracos agreed and changed the name of South Skyla to Magia. This separation forced by Sybil's hands would actually bring about the longest era of peace in Ruma's history, but the foundation for which that era was built came with a guarantee that the longer Sybil had to grow in power, this peace could never last.